And the other thing very strong is that Brother Jose Luis, after explaining to us the value of dead before dirty, and look at the mess we're making. Let's say notice that every day we find a new job and we take it outside all the time. The Minister of Human Capital moves me. That is a course-finding machine. It has an anti-corruption division and moves into a new apartment every week. And a few novels ago, you will be seeing it. Beyond those who end up incriminating themselves for removing trust funds from a law, in that context, the other thing that Brother Jose Luis did was write the numbers. And it started from 0 to 10. 0 was something very small, and as they moved towards 10, the numbers grew, and 10 took up the entire height of the board. And there he told us about merit. So if something marked my life, it was that first grade class. I still remember that there. 47 years passed. And I continue to get excited about that memory. I remember that it marked me all my life. Dead before the RT. And fight for merit. Strive for excellence. And those are values that I took in a calligraphy class. But at the Cardinal Copelo School, in the Venezuelan community. And it seems to me that if there was anything I had to tell him, it was that. The most valuable thing is that let them be upright people, whatever they do. But be honest, in other words, fight for your ideals. Don't lower your arms. Look, I usually, for those who follow us, you will see that our followers have two caps. Or they have the one who is very nice and we all have fun with him. They do not see her. And the other is the forces of heaven. The forces of heaven are born from when it was my turn to take over as National Deputy, December 11, 2021. And at that moment, a journalist from Diputados TV, very rude, told me, "You are 2 in 257. What can you do?" In other words, they are going to fall into total irrelevance. They are going to be nothingness itself. In fact, we didn't even have the body to join a commission. And at that moment, I answered him with the book of Maccabees, which says that victory in battle does not depend on the number of soldiers, but on the forces that come from heaven. And those two marginals up in the Chamber of Deputies, I say, in principle, my videos are the most viewed videos within the Chamber of Deputies, in the history of the Chamber of Deputies. And not only that, but shortly after assuming, let's say, a brilliant idea from my sister of how the anarchists resolved the issue of collecting a diet from the state, that is something, let's say, collected through taxes, that they are theft. because no one pays them voluntarily. Where do you think taxes come from? A hindrance of slavery. But if we also decided who to give it to, that was almost like, I don't know, playing the social benefactor that plays any politician, which also seemed wrong to us. And brilliantly, my sister came up with it. The boss came up with the idea that we should get around it. And we sorted out. And that ended up being the cover of newspapers in 30 countries around the world. Of course, there was no such thing as a politician returning money to the people. It was quite strange. And if you notice, our entire career in politics was a fight against enormous adversity. For us, the first thing they said was that we were not going to be able to form a party. In other words, the first thing they said is that they will not be able to form a party. So in fact, let's say the head of government at that time, dedicated himself to buying as many rubber stamps as he had around so that we couldn't compete. Once I say, I'm going to tell you in a simplified way. Let's say the film, if you want to see it, is in a film made by the brilliant Santiago Oria called... Santi, what is the name of the movie? There is. That's my filmmaker. He's the one who makes the videos, everything. A brilliant guy. That we are already at almost 2 million views of the film, and that it is also being translated into several languages. There you will be able to see everything in detail, all the things we suffered. But after that, they told us that we were already game. They told us that we were not going to be able to pass the 2% floor. Then as we continued to advance, they told us that we were going to lose against the blank vote. Then they told us that the left was going to beat us by a landslide. Nothing happened, right? Because I named them. I named them. And then they even created a parallel list to break our structure, let's say, and to decimate us. And yet we managed to get 17% of the votes in the city. We had become the third force. And after what happened with the die draw, my sister and I looked at each other and said, well, it seems like we're up to other things. They started with the same type of attacks, that we were not going to be able to form a party. And that is why of the 24 districts, we participate in 22. They said that with luck, at best, we would get just under 10 points. And that after the PASO, we were going to fall to 3. And we continue fighting. Because we were convinced that victory in battle does not depend on the number of soldiers, but on the forces that come from heaven. And that's when we were surprised and ended up getting 30% of the votes and were the most voted force, both by candidate and strength. And that began a very difficult stretch towards the general election. We have had to endure two structures throwing everything you can imagine at us. In fact, the ruling party at that time think that an electoral campaign in general is done with yours, eh? not when they make it cash like we do. $100 million are spent. Well, the ruling party only spent $300 million on YouTube, so that every time you opened YouTube, you would find negative publicity about me. And despite the enormous effort we made, in fact, my strategist, who is also a brilliant, wonderful guy, who is Santiago Caputo, when you review all the interviews, there is not a single error. But we had the free electrons that made. Did you see how we libertarians are? Libertarians are not a pack. So since we have many free thinkers, they would ambush the rest of our candidates, and every now and then we would have a problem. And so we arrived at the Paso, but we arrived in second place. And those two lost people there in the chamber who couldn't do anything, they ended up in the presidency. They ended up winning the election with 14.5 million votes. In other words, I am the president with the most votes in Argentine history, and we got 56% of the votes. So what I want to convey to you is that when you have conviction, there is nothing that can stop you. And if they are also accompanied by faith, there is no way to destroy them. They will never be able to stop them. One of the things my sister and I always went over during the campaign is that a lot of things happened to us that if it had happened to any other candidate, it would have brought them down. And yet we kept moving forward. And for us, that is like proof of heaven too. It is proof of the existence of one, because if you think about it, we didn't have a handle. We went to fight with two Scarabantes, and the only thing we had was ideas and faith. And every time something adverse happened to us, the reflection that we and my sister did was that indeed, if despite all this we win, it is because it is our will. So what I tell you is that when you let your heart lead you, when you are complete and above all things you place your faith in the Creator, nothing is going to stop you. Everything is going to be possible. So I hope this is something that you can add to have a better and successful life. Thank you so much.